Small wins.
Hitting record here before I forget. Okay, ladies, I'm going to give it like 2 more minutes here. I'm going to pull up my notes that I sometimes follow, very rarely follow, and see if anybody else hops on here. Oh, Sadie, it's hot out there.
Oh, it looks hot where Sadie is for sure.
Yeah, I'm already sweating
Sadie's
and I'm
Sadie's where I am. We live in
Oh,
the same area. Yeah.
yeah, it's toasty. I've got my baby today, so we're going out for a walk to keep her quiet. I may turn my video off so I don't give you guys all motion sickness, but I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Perfect.
And yes,
Perfect.
it's very hot.
Gail, is it a million degrees where you are too?
I'm in Woodbury. I don't know what the temperature is, but I don't even have my air on. Let me look.
Yep,
Right now,
she's a local
out,
person too, Tara. My
outside
Oh,
is
local.
cool.
85. But yeah,
Oh,
no, I don't have my air on yet.
Yet.
It needs to get pretty hot in here. I'm in a center townhouse, so I got a unit on each side of me, and that really protects my temperature year round, which is quite nice, actually.
oh, awesome.
I'm looking at our temperature right now, you guys, and it's currently, like you said, 85, 86 degrees, but it will be 90 in 2 hours and then 90
Yeah,
most of the evening.
yeah. So I'll probably turn it on at that point. I do have an air conditioner.
I love heat. I love heat. So I'm eating
I do
this
too. If I have to pick between being cold and being hot, I'd rather be hot.
100%.
Well,
Yep.
you guys are in the wrong state then, I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
no, I
I'm
know.
sorry. I've spent 27 years in Oregon and we love it here, even though it's like really humid. We would much rather have the vitamin D available to
Yeah.
us. It's so depressing. The clouds, the constant rain is just, it really gets to your holy cow. Sorry.
Well, I love the climate at that upper in the upper northwest there, but I have naturally curly hair,
So
and
do I.
humid and
I
naturally curly
understand.
hair does not work.
I understand completely. I
Yep.
feel that. It
So
does
I
give
love
you
to visit,
volume
but I
if you like
can't see
volume.
myself
Yeah.
living there.
Oh man.
That's why I just booked myself regular vacations. Like we just booked a vacation to go to Belize in October. We'll go back to Costa Rica in February. So that's my toss up of living in this horrid state of the cold winter. I just make a conscious effort to get to somewhere tropical a couple times a year, and that usually kind of like satisfies my itch. I definitely I have come to the acceptance that I am not supposed to be in Minnesota. There's something in my genes that is meant to be in a tropical place, but our family's here and like weird, you don't really like your family for a good portion of your life, at least my experience, but then you have kids and all of a sudden you like your family. So I have to, we like to be close while Murray's still little, but I have a feeling that like when she gets older, we get a little older, I think we'll get the hell out of Dodge. I don't know if we'll something about like finding a nice spot in Costa Rica or something and hunkering down there sounds quite nice to me.
Well,
And
Family is
I
important.
don't like monkeys, and don't they have a lot of monkeys in Costa Rica? I'm not into monkeys. So I never
It's a
felt
deal
a live
breaker for
somewhere
you,
where
huh?
monkeys drop out of trees on you. I just that's too much for me.
they do. We were in Costa Rica in February, so a few months ago. And the condo that we stayed at, like there were like you would just wake up to these monkeys and they're howler monkeys. And they
Yeah.
sound like if you've never experienced them before, they sound terrifying. Like they sound, I'm not going to make the sound for you guys because I'm going to sound really dumb, but you guys can go ahead and Google howler monkeys and they sound like demons. You're like, what is in the trees right now? But it's just so surreal to like grab your coffee in the morning and go sit outside and you're just sitting there watching monkeys. It's just like I know people live in Costa Rica are probably like these dumb Americans, right? Like we see these monkeys all the time. And like, I'm just like, ah. And Murray thought it was cool too, just to walk outside and be able to see monkeys. It's just like, yeah, cultural shock there for him. So, okay. All right. 107. Okay, if everybody wants to mute themselves for now, but of course, if you guys have questions or whatever, drop it in the chat, raise your hand. These are pretty informal. You know what I did just spend like the last 30 minutes doing? I misplaced our car keys like 3 days ago. If you guys ever done, maybe you guys have done this, maybe you haven't. I had the car keys in my hand. And I remember them putting them somewhere. Like I swear I stuffed them in a pocket. And I remember thinking as I was stuffing them in my pocket, Brandy, don't put them here because you're gonna forget that that you put them here and then you're gonna lose them. And then I was like, no, it's fine, I'll remember it. And now 3 days later, we're down a set of car keys. And I searched, this is why my bed looks like this, because I searched everywhere. And now I'm starting to think that Murray stole them because it is not the first time Murray has taken things and like hidden them on us or just like, not, I don't think she's intentionally trying to hide things. She just puts them in her like dollhouse or something like that. So don't be like me. Don't do that with your car keys. So, okay. Welcome. Okay, so I'm glad that this time like kind of worked okay. Let me just jump in the group chat here for a second just to make sure nobody's having any issues getting in here that's planning. We'll be late. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I will say that I don't usually do these during the daytime, but I'm not going to lie, this is kind of easier just for the sense that Murray's not home. She's at daycare, so I don't really have to worry about kind of navigating those extra things, which is kind of nice. So next week, I'm leaning towards doing a 1 p.m. again on a Tuesday. So maybe just like chalk 1 p.m. and 6 p.m. in your brain for now. I will promise I'll get back and confirm that as soon as I can. But I'm going to lean towards that if my other work schedule allows for that. Okay, anyways. Oh, what are we going to talk about today, you guys? This is what I like to call Metabolism School. And this is going to get a little geeky and a little like biochemistry. So if you're not following and I'm not making sense to you, also know that that's okay because this is a little bit like kind of next level learning with this. And sometimes it takes a little time of hearing about kind of biochemistry and macronutrients in our fueling system to be able to like really understand it. But I do think it's really important. Like we have to understand how fuels are used in the body. And when we do understand how food is used in the body, it gets a lot easier to make informed food decisions, okay? And it gets a lot easier to not outsource your health because you're going to have all the information that you need to in order to eat like a normal human being after this class, course, reset, whatever you want to call it. So fuels, macronutrients, carbs, fat, oh my, all the things that we're going to talk about that have been completely demonized and bastardized in our mainstream diet narrative. So I'm hoping to kind of clear up some of the confusion on carbs and fat and protein for you guys today. So are we halfway done? Yeah, we're just about halfway done. Just a little bit over halfway done in the program. So after this Zoom call next week, we're going to talk about something different, right? Some other lifestyle implications that have metabolic impact on weight loss and things like that, right? Like sleep and movement. I think you guys had a movement one coming out, or maybe it comes out on Thursday. I can't quite remember. But there's some other, I think of them in like adjacent factors, right? Like food, 100% is the biggest dial mover on fat loss, right? We can't argue that. Like things like exercise have relatively little to do with fat loss, despite what we kind of think about exercise. It doesn't really do anything for fat loss, quite frankly. And that's something that I'll try to touch on as well. But movement is important, right? Movement and exercise are important irregardless of if it helps us lose fat. I do want to make that point. And then other things like sleep and light, right? Sunlight, where we are animals that are synced with the rising and the setting of the sun. So it is important for us to get the right light at the right time of day. And those are all things I'm going to talk about next week. Get a little, even more geeky with circadian rhythm stuff, which I love. Okay. So keeping this learning going today, I'm going to dive into a little biochemistry lesson on fuels. And you guys might remember this from like 8th or 9th grade biology or chemistry class, this might actually start ringing a bell to you. So a little recap. Our metabolism is our fueling system, okay? It converts fuel, right? Food into, it converts food fuel into human fuel, right? To power our bodies. You likely joined the reset because to learn about the metabolism, right? You likely wanted to join because you probably thought that there was something a little off with yours. You just weren't feeling right. You were having this insidious weight gain, low energy, hunger all the time, cravings. All of these things are kind of direct metabolic signs. So the human body has three different fuels: sugar or glucose, right? We use them interchangeably. So that's like free sugar, right? The free sugar floating around your blood, and stored glucose, which is called glycogen, right? That's just the form of stored sugar is glycogen. Then we have fat, right? So we have sugar, we have fat. Fat is the main source of fuel throughout the day. That is what we should be running our bodies on 99% of the day. So fat is in the form of like free fatty acids that are flying around your blood, or stored fat, aka body fat. Those are your kinds of fat that you have. And then you have even more kinds of fat, right? We have our visceral fat, we have our subcutaneous fat, we have our essential fat, all of these. I wish I could do a whole nother lesson about body fat. to be honest, everybody hates their body fat, but our body fat is actually pretty cool. And there's just a lot of differences and nuances comparatively between the kinds of body fat we have, right? And I'll just give you briefly, like subcutaneous fat is the fat that's right below your skin, right? You can kind of like go down here and pinch, or like maybe behind your like bra, like the little squishy stuff is your subcutaneous fat. And then we have our essential fat. Women biologically have more essential fat, right? And that is for childbearing purposes. So we tend to carry more fat in our butt and our hips and our chest and things like that. That's yours, and our bellies, right? That's where we carry more body fat. And I just want you to know that's normal. That's essential body fat. So we can hate on that all we want, but it's going to take a lot of hard work and micromanagement of food to get rid of all that. And I don't think that you guys want that. And then we have visceral fat. Visceral fat is usually accumulated around our bellies, and that's the fat that starts to infiltrate our organs, right? This is the no-no fat. This is the fat that we do not want on our body. You can think of it as, you see people walking around, even if they look relatively lean, but they got guts on them. You know what I'm talking about? Like, that's visceral fat. For women, like if you got a belly on you, that's probably some visceral fat. And you can like do a little test and like reach down. It's what I'm telling you guys to do. Reach down and pinch your belly fat. But visceral fat tends to be a little bit harder. You know what I mean? It's not as squishy as our subcutaneous fat. It's a little bit harder. And like, that is the kind of fat that is linked to a lot of metabolic diseases and a lot of difficulty regulating our weight and a lot of organ issues, right? Because it's a fat that's like kind of twirling in and out of our vital organs, like fatty liver disease. You guys have all heard those things. Like, this is all kind of like visceral fat taking over our organs. We don't want that. That's a big metabolic red sign of, metabolic conditions, metabolic diseases down the line for you. So if I could get rid of one of them, it would be to be knocking away your visceral fat. And all the things that you're learning here are going to help take care of that. So now that I just went down a rabbit hole of body fat. So back to the human fuel systems, right? Sugar, fat, and then ketones. Ketones are also a human fuel system, and they are a byproduct of fat metabolism. Okay, so when your body starts breaking down, starts oxidizing fat to use for energy, a little byproduct of that is a ketone, and that's produced in your liver. I like to think of it as like a tadpole. You guys seen a tadpole, right? There's like the little round piece and the little tail. I think of like the little round piece that's your fatty acid, and then the little tail of the tadpole is your ketone. They kind of come together in a package. When you start burning fat, you also start, usually it's accompanied by a ketone, okay? Guys may have heard of this in the sense of like a ketogenic diet. I'm not saying we need to be on a ketogenic diet, but that's kind of what it's referring to. And then we have protein, right? But protein really isn't a fuel substrate. I think I talked about this a little bit last week when we were talking about protein. Protein just goes to, right, nourishment. It provides our nourishment. It provides our essential vitamins and minerals and all of those things, and it solves for hunger, right? Protein is what keeps us not hungry, so we can indeed lose weight, because if you're hungry all the time, losing weight is going to be very, very difficult. And then protein goes to maintain the house, right? Your meat house that you live in. Isn't that wild? Your body is actually made of meat, if nobody ever told you that before. So we have a sequence. This is going to get kind of interesting. So we have a sequence. Wait, how should I say this? Okay, we have a sequence in which our body will use fuel. Okay, it's called oxidative priority. Now, you guys don't have to this is just information. Like, you're not gonna make it or break it by knowing what oxidative priority is, but I just think it's interesting to think about. So, the sequence in which our body uses fuel, alcohol is first, right? We know this. We can't have unlimited amounts of alcohol in our bloodstream, otherwise you would die. And we cannot store alcohol. So alcohol has to be metabolized. So if you bring in alcohol, that is the first thing that needs to be burned. So that's first in line. And then protein. And that might sound kind of counterintuitive, what I've been telling you guys, because protein's not really a fuel substrate. But this just is in the context of somebody who is eating a ridiculous amount of protein, but that's nobody. Even if it feels like you guys are eating a lot because I've asked you to eat more protein, trust me, you're not eating anywhere near the amount of protein in which protein would be used as a fuel source. So we can kind of disregard that. We're eating it because protein's difficult to overeat. You guys have probably noticed this, right? You can put a lot of protein on your plate, but you're going to check out at some point because satiety. So nobody's eating too much protein. We're just eating enough. Next in line, so we have alcohol first, protein next, sugar. Okay, sugar is next in line because there's limited capacity for us to store sugar. We can only store about 2,000 calories worth of sugar on our body at any given time. And it's usually stored in our liver or it's stored in our muscles. But since there is a limited storage to store sugar, that has to be kind of next in line, right? We have to get it out and we have to get it utilized and burned. And then lastly is fat, okay? Fat is the last thing that your body wants to burn. And if you think back to the week one that we were together, we talked about how fat is gold, right? Fat is gold because we evolved in food scarcity. So body fat was really nice to have because we could survive for a really, really long time on body fat. So your body does not necessarily want to get rid of body fat quickly, not as quickly as we do anyways. Our body likes to hang on to that. That's why it's the last substrate in the line of burning. Okay, so hopefully you guys have kind of gathered this so far, but if you are doing a fast, high energy, high output activity, your body will use a fast fuel, which is sugar. Okay, and this was your lesson from, what day is it? Tuesday. Was this your lesson? The campfire analogy. Was that yesterday or was that last Thursday? It was one of them. If you guys remember that, your metabolism lesson school that laid out that campfire analogy, that's what I'm referring to when I say campfire one. So sugar, campfire one. So as I said, we have a limited amount, a limited ability to store sugar in our liver and muscles. So it's not an infinite substrate for us. So if you're doing something high energy, high output, fast, your body will use sugar. If you are doing something low and slow activity, which most of us do most of our days, our body will use a slow fuel, which is fat. That was campfire 2, your log fire. So even the leanest person has tens. I want you guys to think about this for a second. Even the leanest person has tens of thousands of calories worth of stored fat on their body. Our body's ability to store fat is quite amazing. So ketones are a fast fuel. They're kind of like sugar, right? They're a fast fuel similar to sugar. And I do want to say all of these fuel sources are fine. I don't want to demonize any of them. We're not demonizing sugar. We're not demonizing fat. We're not demonizing ketone. They are all fine, viable fuel sources for the human body. We do not need to fear any of them, but there's some nuance to this, okay? The main thing that I want to get across in this metabolism lesson is you are a fat burning animal, right? Everyone has heard these like gimmicky people, everyone has heard people push like these gimmicky supplements and diet programs and exercise programs that claim they're fat burning, right? Like take these gummies and you'll burn your belly fat, or do this workout program and you'll torch your body fat. You guys know what I'm talking about here? Or buy this and it will rev up your metabolism so you're in a fat burning state. You are already in a fat burning state. That's all really shitty marketing to get you guys to buy really shitty products that don't work, right? If it was easy enough to take a gummy and lose belly fat, everybody would have figured that out by now. But we know that's not the case. So you are already a fat burning animal. By default, it is your default state to be running on fat. The human species have been running on fat for 2.5 million years at this point in time. So you've also probably heard that sugar is our body's primary fuel source, but that's not true. That's not true, guys. Fat should be our predominant fuel source that we are running our everyday body on because we live relatively slow lives. It might not feel that, right? We all have very stressful, not all of us, but a lot of us have very stressful, seemingly fast-paced, stressful lives. But if you like think about a common day here, I'll just give you a scenario here. Average person wakes up, you've been sleeping for 8 hours or whatever, doing nothing, right? Well, you're doing a lot when you sleep, but you get the idea. We wake up, we go drink our coffee. We might sit on the couch while we drink our coffee, get our kids ready to go. We get in a car where we're sitting some more. We drive to our job. We sit from 9 to 5 doing our job. Most people, again, there's nuance with this. But even if you had a job where you're on your feet all day, you're walking around, you're still like, that's still slow movement, right? We're not running all day on your feet. You're just walking around like a construction worker or something like that. So you work your 9 to 5 job where you're mostly seated most of that time. We come home, maybe you hit the gym for like an hour, but out of 24 hours a day, when you're talking about 1 hour workout, really that's not a lot, right? We do that. We come home, we eat dinner sitting down, we put the kids down, insert whatever feels right in your life. And then we might sit on the couch, watch a couple Netflix shows, and then we go to bed. So if you think about that, that is a predominantly fat burning day, right? That's kind of a low and slow day, even if it feels busy and hectic to us. And so because that is a predominantly fat burning day, and then when we have to tap into those fast fuels like sugar and ketones, you're good. We're good. We've got them stored on and in our body. We don't have to micromanage this at all. Our body does it for us. So take, for example, exercise, right? High intensity exercise, weightlifting, things like that, which would be a predominantly sugar burning fuel. Your body's like, oh, cool. This animal is, running fast right now. I'm going to liberate some sugar for this animal to do what it needs to do. Or what else would we need a fast fuel? Let's say you're walking in the street and a car starts swerving towards you and you have to jump out of the way. Liberation of quick fuel to get you out of harm's way, right? So there's all these like scenarios that we would be using sugar, a fast fuel, but that's not our default, right? We're not doing that stuff all the time. From a historic perspective, we would have used fast fuels to run and get our food, right? You have to sprint after your animal. Maybe you're running away from to avoid being someone else's dinner. Or what else? You're building, let's see here. You're building, what's the word I'm looking for? Shelter, right? So you're like hauling some heavy logs around or some rocks, right? Things like that your body would have used sugar for, but you have it in your body, right? It's already on board. You got those 2,000 calories to play around with. We don't need to fuel extra for that. So back to the idea of sugar being our preferential fuel source, because you guys will hear this all over the health and diet space if you haven't already, that everybody's like, oh my God, you got to eat carbohydrates because sugar is our preferential fuel and your brain needs fuel and blah, blah, blah. Your brain needs sugar, all these things. So our bodies prefer sugar because sugar is easy and simple. Okay, it is a fast fuel. It could not be easier for our cells to scoop up sugar as soon as it hits our bloodstream and send it to our cells to be converted into energy. But here's the thing: preferential does not mean best. It just means it's preferred. We've somehow decided, because sugar is used first, right? Remember the oxidative priority: sugar comes before fat. We somehow decided, because sugar is used first, preferential, it means it's the best. But that's not true. It just means that if our body has a choice between fat and sugar is available, of which it always is in our modern day diet because of what we eat and the frequency of what we eat, right? We're eating all day, we're grazing, or we eat a relatively high carbohydrate diet, things like that. Our bodies are going to take the path of least resistance, which is sugar, okay? And for most people, since we're already stuck in that sugar burning paradigm where sugar is the predominant fuel source because it's always available in our diets, you bet our body is going to prefer to use it. But that doesn't mean it's better, okay? Preferential does not equal better. And then what happens, unfortunately, because sugar is always accessible to us, our bodies get really, really good at using sugar for fuel. They get really, really good at using sugar for fuel, which in turn makes us really bad at using sugar for fuel. I'll go into that in a minute. But then it forgets how to use other fuels like fat and ketones. Okay. So our bodies have very little incentive to tap into stored fat these days because we always have food and sugar coming in. Does that make sense? That makes sense. Like, what incentive does our body have to tap into our fat stores if we're constantly feeding it? That doesn't really make sense, does it? So what we're doing here is we're training your body to prefer slow fuels again, fat, okay? Whether that's the dietary fat that we eat, right? Your avocado or your fat that naturally comes along with your meat or whatever that is, or the fat on your body that you want to get rid of so you feel more comfortable and confident in your clothes. We are training our bodies to reach for that first, not the fast fuels of which many of us are stuck in using. Part of the reason we break fast with mostly protein, okay? Like I said, protein is not used for energy, and protein is used for our nourishment, to get the nourishment that we need. So in the morning, when we break fast and we have a meal that is predominantly protein, that doesn't have a lot of fuel to it, right? Like it's predominantly protein. So of course there's going to be some fat that comes along with it, but there's little fat and little carbohydrates relative to the amount of protein because we're trying to incentivize your body to tap into stored fuels, okay? By giving it nourishment so we're not hungry, but not giving it too much energy that it's going to use that. Does that make sense? Okay. Hold on. Let me just check. Okay. I just want to check the chat. All right. Taking a breather here for a second because I know this might sound or feel overwhelming to you guys, but hopefully I'm trying to break it down as like simplified as I possibly can for a kind of a complex conversation. So, 1:30, I'm making good time. We are working the overarching method of my program is we're working on getting our bodies to be metabolically flexible. Okay, that means being able to oscillate between fuels depending on what you're doing. Most of us can't really do that. We don't have to specifically fuel for anything. Workouts, I know somebody had that question earlier about like, what do I eat around my workouts? Do I need to worry about that? Do I need something before I work out? Do I need something after I work out? You don't need any of that. You literally don't need any of that. You can actually just eat your normal meals like you guys have been doing so beautifully, and you can work out and it's all good, right? We don't need to specifically fuel. Now, if you were some athlete, right, an elite level athlete, which I don't think any of us are in here, that might be different, right? Because they need more nuanced, specific nutrient timing, nutrition based on their sport and their performance. But that's not us. We're just like regular average people here who may or may not exercise, but we don't need to do anything special with our nutrition as it relates to workouts, because our bodies can fuel ourselves. And I kind of alluded to that, right? I was talking about like exercise. Like when I'm in the gym and I'm doing strength training or I'm doing some sprints or something like that, I don't need to eat a banana to do that, to get sugar, right? My body has 2,000 calories worth of stored sugar on it. So when my body starts sprinting, your body is picking up on that. It's like, whoa, this animal is sprinting, right? They don't know that I'm sprinting for exercise. Like, for all we know, my body thinks that I'm trying to evade a saber-toothed tiger, right? It doesn't know what we're doing. It just knows the inputs that we're giving it. So my body's like, oh, okay, well, this animal's trying to get away from something real fast. So we're going to dump some sugar into her blood so she can get away. So I can do my sprints. I don't need to eat a banana for that. And then when I go back into the gym and I lift my weights and I'm taking my 2-minute rest in between my sets and things like that, my body oscillates back into a fat burning state because that's more of a slow movement. Does that make sense, you guys? Okay. Gail, that's a good comment. I'm going to hit on that on the end. I saw that pop up. But yeah, that's just a kind of a tangent of like the workout thing. Nobody needs to fuel specifically for workouts here. We're good. So this is kind of where the broken metabolism narrative comes into play. If you've heard that before, a lot of people will be like, well, I just have a broken metabolism, or, insert whatever. If you feel, and this will be more apparent for, I know some of you folks in here have pretty prominent blood sugar, insulin dysregulation going on that is very noticeable to you. If you feel like you need to eat to keep your energy up, that's what we're fixing here. Okay, that's what we're trying to fix here. And depending on what level of metabolic dysregulation you came into the reset on, it might take a little bit longer to fix that. If you feel hangry, lightheaded, nauseous, irritable when you don't eat, your brain literally thinks you're starving because it cannot access your stored fuel. But we aren't starving, right? Because we can all look down and we know that we have fuel to use. We have calories to use. You're like, shit, body, just like take a little bit off my belly or my thighs or something right here. Like, why do I need to keep eating to keep my energy up? What happens is we just need a better metabolism, essentially. Now, for somebody who is insulin resistant, which I would wage, many of you are, because that's who my message tends to reach. I'm not diagnosed, even though I don't think insulin resistance is even a formal diagnosis. But I'm just using logic here, right? 88%. Oh, funny how when I wrote this, it says my little notes here say 88% of American population is metabolically broken. But that statistic just went up to 93. You guys, 93. So that means 7% of the American population is actually metabolically healthy. That's not good. So that's why I'm saying most of you are probably insulin resistant by just deduction of statistics here. It's not falling in people's favor. So 93% of the American population is metabolically broken. And the biggest indication of that is insulin resistance. Many other people have other symptoms that come along with insulin resistance or prediabetes. That's also what it's called, kind of that next level insulin resistance. High fasting blood sugars, high fasting glucose, hypertension, abdominal fat, abdominal circumference, high triglycerides, chronic inflammation, high blood pressure, right? Those are all kind of those hallmark markers of metabolic syndrome. So if you are a little bit metabolically broken, this is insulin resistance. I'm going to explain this to you. If you are metabolically broken, I don't want to, I also language. I gotta put a caveat to this. Nobody's broken, okay? Like our metabolism, you can't really break our metabolism. We can run it into the ground, for lack of better words. But I'm using metabolically broke because that's just kind of the common language that I hear a lot of people talk about this. So there's that. So if you are metabolically broken, it doesn't really matter if food is coming in because your cells are closed, right? This is insulin resistance. Your cells are no longer letting insulin in, right? Remember we talked about like insulin is what grabs the fuel from your blood and puts it into your cell so your cell can convert it to energy. But in an insulin resistant cell, your cell's closed and it's like not letting anything in. So what happens is you eat something, your body detects that there's fuel in the blood, your pancreas excretes insulin to come shuttle the fuel into your cells. But what happens is your cells are full. and they don't want to open. So the fuel bounces off the cells and continues to circulate in your blood. So your blood sugar goes up, and then your insulin goes up because your insulin is detecting that there's still fuel in your blood. So your pancreas keeps secreting insulin to get it out. And we get into a problem. We get into a big problem here because your cells close. So there's nowhere for that fuel to go. And what happens, because that fuel has to go somewhere eventually, right? We can't just have insulin and blood sugar circulating our blood indefinitely, so it gets sent to storage, right? Because it can't get into your cells to be used for energy, to be burned, so it goes into storage. So that is an insulin. This, I don't know if this is a puppet show what I'm doing here, but hopefully you guys are figuring this is a cell and this is insulin. I need to get better with that, but hopefully you guys are gathering it. So that is an insulin resistant cell. So your brain, and this is like the double whammy, you guys. So your brain sends this frantic signal to your body that it's starving, right? Because fuel isn't getting into the cell. So your brain's like, holy shit, like we're running low on fuel here, and it's sending this signal like we need fuel, but there's nothing coming in. But we're not starving, right? Because we have tons of calories worth of stored fuel that our body can tap into, but it can't, right? An insulin resistant body cannot tap into those stored fuels. And this is where a lot of people start to struggle with cravings and unmanageable hunger. Since sugar is a fast fuel, when your cells are low on fuel because they are insulin resistant and can't let that stuff inside to be used for energy, your brain cues up cravings, so you go eat the sugary foods, so you get that quick hit. And that is not a very productive metabolic paradigm to be in, okay? So we need to reverse out of that. And actually, you guys know what I did? Hold on, I'm gonna pull this up. I had my buddy, Chatty G. Sadie knows my buddy. You guys, I use Chat. I'm not even gonna tell you. Like, okay, so Sadie and I work together. And we have our team meetings like every Wednesday, so we have to go into the office. And like, I just feel like ChatGPT, if you guys don't know what the hell I'm talking about right now, anytime our team needs resources, if you remember, I'm a mental health case manager, a children's mental health case manager. So anytime we need like local resources, my team, I'm just like, you guys just wait, like, let me ask Chatty G. And we always get very valuable resources. So hold on, I asked, I love analogies, okay? Something about me. I love analogies, and most people like analogies because it takes a complex topic and makes it into something very simple and digestible for us. So I was like, hey, Chatty G, I want you to write me an analogy to explain insulin resistance. And this is what it wrote. And I was actually going to put this in your guys' curriculum or your lesson, but I didn't have time. It's really short, but I think this is a good way of thinking it if what I just said to you seemed very confusing. Okay, so think of insulin like a key, and your cells are doors. When everything's working right, insulin, the key, opens the doors so sugar, glucose from your blood can get inside your cells and be used for energy. But here's the problem. When you're constantly flooding your body with food, especially refined carbs and sugars, those doors get sick of being knocked on. It's like your cells start going, oh, like stop ringing the doorbell. Like we're not going to answer anymore at this point. So they become kind of numb or kind of dormant to insulin's knock to let them in. So now the key, insulin, doesn't work well anymore and sugar can't get in. So what does your body do? It panics. It panics and makes more keys, more insulin to try to force the door open on your cell to get that energy inside. This works for a while because our bodies are very adaptable. So this does actually work for a while. Like insulin is able to kind of keep squeezing your food fuel into your cells, but it's hard work. But eventually this stops and eventually this doesn't work. So now what we've got is we have sugar stuck outside the cell, high blood sugar. We have a ton of insulin floating around, which is high insulin, which there are medical terms for this, high insulin and high blood sugar. And then we get tired, pissed off cells that don't want to open the door. That's insulin resistance. Was that a good analogy? Do you guys follow that one? I'm going to have to keep that. Chatty G for the win. Because I'm not creative enough to come up with cool analogies like that. So I like that. So I'm going to put that in for my next reset. If you guys ever take a reset again, know that analogy will pop up. Okay, I think I got like 10 more minutes here, so that's pretty good. And if, of course, any questions, I have insulin like 10 times before. Yeah, Angela. She said I have heard and read about insulin like 10 times before it's sunk in. It is kind of a complex topic. I actually sent Angela and Tara in here, my private clients, and I sent them a podcast earlier all about insulin resistance. And I'll drop that in the group too. It is long. It is like 3 hours, just to let you know, but it is by far one of the best podcasts. His name is Dr. Ben Bickman. If anybody knows this, he's like an insulin. He's a doctor, and his expertise is insulin fat loss, and basically the model that high insulin, unregulated insulin, dysregulated insulin makes us gain weight, and that is my the philosophy I have adopted. Hence why I follow a lot of his work. But this podcast was really good, so I'll drop it in the group. Okay, so another way, I'm going to give you another way to think about this fueling paradigm that I'm trying to explain. Wouldn't it make sense that the fuel source that we're supposed to run our bodies on, mostly, we have an infinite amount to use, right? The storage capacity for fat is huge. And that the fuel source we're only supposed to use occasionally, right? When we're doing that high output, high intensity kind of stuff, we have limited stores, right? Sugar has limited stores. Our ability to store fat is amazing. And it's the reason that we're still here today, because when food was scarce, we literally could tap into our stored fat and snack on it. I'm trying to teach you guys how to get your bodies to a point where they're going to snack on your body fat. And that sounds super weird and kind of gruesome at the same time, but that's essentially what we want to do. That's how we lose body fat. So sugar, point blank, not a good fuel source to be running our bodies on indefinitely. Our lifestyles are not high input enough to need fast fuels all of the time. Now, this does not mean I'm saying that we're not avoiding fat. We are not avoiding carbohydrates, right? I'm not saying these things are bad. I want to hit home with that. We are just prioritizing protein, our log fire, right? Campfire 2. So our bodies can figure out how to use fat and ketones for fuel instead of sugar all the time. We're just like turning the faucet down a little bit on sugar. And you guys have beautifully done this already because we've eliminated grains, right? And again, we didn't eliminate grains because they're carbohydrates. We eliminated grains because they have those inflammatory properties to them. And grains are the biggest source of carbohydrates in the modern American diet. So naturally, by eliminating grains, we already are like turning that faucet down. And you guys have done that so wonderfully. Okay, little recap on the food fundamental, and then I'll talk about your fourth food fundamental, and that's it for today. So recap. Food fundamental number 1, eat meals, not snacks. That's pretty self-explanatory, right? A surefire way to get into a calorie deficit is to stop snacking between your meals. This is how I teach people. Like, just stop snacking between your meals. If you add up, none of us are adding anything in here, hopefully, but if you add up all of the little snacky poos that we have in between our meals and after dinner and all those, that's anywhere from 200 to 500 calories per day, right? Our little handfuls of nuts here, our little handfuls of things here, our little nibbles off our kids' plates. If you just eliminate that, there's your calorie deficit. There it is. And you guys barely even did anything. Like, you're nourished, you're satiated, you're well fed, you're eating delicious meals. You're just taking out the in-between stuff. This is how you lose weight without food tracking in my world. We don't need to track that. You don't need to track snacks to know that you're eating snacks. Okay? Like, we already know it. Number 2, break fast like a king, right? The big thing with that was your first meal of the day, when your first hunger arises, should be your biggest, most protein dominant meal of the day. Number 3, prioritize protein. All of your subsequent meals, I still want you to prioritize protein. Okay? I think of protein as like was I explaining this to Angela or maybe Tara? I don't know. I was explaining this like protein is like your outfit for the day, like your main outfit, like your dress, and then like your fat and your carbohydrate, all the other stuff you put on your plate, your pickles, your fruit, your veggies. Think of those are like the accessories to your plate. Like, that's like your purse and your bracelet and your earrings, things that I don't ever wear. So I don't know what my accessories would be, but you guys get the point. That brings us to number 4. front load your food, front load your calories. Okay. People always ask me, when should I eat? Brandy, when should I eat? I've already mastered what should I eat, but when should I eat? And then what should your subsequent meals look like after your breakfast, right? The Prince and the Pauper meals, or just your Prince and Pauper, depending on how many meals you're eating in a day, 2, 3 meals, whatever. So the takeaway, sorry guys, burp. I need a water break. Okay. So the takeaway, the biggest takeaway for this fundamental is I want you guys to eat most of your food during the earlier part of the day and taper off towards the later part of the day. That sounds pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Self-explanatory. Couple reasons for this. Circadian meal timing. This is a circadian meal timing principle. Okay, our circadian clocks. Circadian, what does circadian mean? Circa, let's break that down. Circa means circle. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, circle, cycles. Sometimes it means approximately. Sometimes there's a couple different meanings depending on which origin, like Latin origin. I think the Latin origin is it means circle, and then diem is day, right? The circle of the day. That's what circadian clock is your circle of the day. So circadian clocks are physical, mental, behavioral changes that follow roughly a 24-hour cycle. Did you guys actually know that we are not on a 24-hour clock? That circadian rhythm is approximately 24 hours, give or take. It's not actually 24 hours like point blank. So these 24-hour cycles respond primarily to lightness and darkness, the rising and the setting of the sun. Certain hormones that affect your metabolism, like cortisol, insulin, melatonin, ghrelin, leptin, those are the hormones that I play with because those are the metabolic hormones that manage our hunger and our weight and all these other things. Those hormones happen at certain times of the day based on these clocks, okay? Your metabolism really, really likes to sync with the circadian clock, this internal circadian clock, because how your body manages fuel, manages your food, depends on the time of the day, okay? Following with me so far, guys? Head nods for those that I can see. So in the beginning of the day, when the sun comes up, your body is primed to take up fuel and nourishment very efficiently and convert it to energy and put it to use for structural purposes, okay? So since we're feeding our cells and not necessarily our tummies, your cells are sitting there in the morning waiting for nourishment to come in, right? It doesn't mean it's urgent. I do want to say that. It's not urgent, right? Your hunger is not urgent, but I'm just saying that's what's happening because the sun came up. So your cells are like, ooh, at some point in time here in the beginning part of the day, there should be some nourishment coming in. That's your first hunger of the day, right? We wake up sometime in the morningish time, we get hungry and we break fast like kings. We nailed that already. Our cells, back to the hand thing, our cells are hanging out there open, waiting for insulin to shuttle those nutrients into the shell. Even an insulin resistant person that your cells are like starting to shut the door, they're still a little bit more open in the beginning of the day, in the first, let's call it the first half of the day, okay? First half of the day. So that's what we want, you guys. We want this nice open relationship between our cells and insulin. We don't want closed cells. Then we're running into problems here. So this relationship is much more open and efficient during the morning or during the first part of the day, which insulin will send more fuel into your cells for energy and less fuel to storage, okay? We're better at burning substrates during the day. We're better at storing substrates later in the day. So when the sun comes up, because of your circadian clock, a bunch of metabolic processes happen. Your nighttime hormones go away, right? Think of it like a passing of the baton. When you wake up in the morning and your body detects that morning is upon you, melatonin starts going down. It doesn't go down right away. It actually takes a couple hours after you wake up for melatonin to quickly go away. And then your daytime hormones come out to play, right? Cortisol comes up a little bit because that's what gets you out of bed. Your insulin starts raising a little bit. Blood sugars start coming up a little bit in the morning. There's this dawn effect from blood sugars. And then all of these neurotransmitters like serotonin, adenosine, things that you guys don't necessarily need to know, but all of these hormones start to come out to play because it's morning. And then everything else goes back, kind of retreats back to its bunker until nighttime's upon us again. So the hormone that I'm going to talk about the most, the daytime hormone that comes out to play, is insulin. So front loading your calories is the idea that consuming more calories early in the day aligns with your body's natural circadian rhythm. Okay. And since we are diurnal animals, right? Humans are diurnal. We have nocturnal animals like bats and stuff like that, right? They sleep all day and they're up all night. They have a completely different physiology and circadian rhythm we do. We are diurnal animals, so we tend to be, unless we're a shift worker, and bless their hearts, because that's the worst freaking job you could possibly do for your biology, and I feel really bad for those people. But so we're diurnal animals, meaning that we are up during the day, meaning we should be eating during the day, right? Not vice versa. So it's about fueling your body when it's most active and needs energy and nourishment, rather than saving all your calories for later in the day, later in the evening, when our body's winding down and less likely to burn them efficiently. So as the day goes on and the sun starts going down, our body detects that, right? Did you guys know the only way that your body knows what time it is the angle of the sun? You know, we like to look at clocks, but your body doesn't run on a wall clock. Our body runs with the sun. So this is why it's important to go outside, right? So your body can kind of sync up with the internal clock. But anyways, your body doesn't know what time it is. It only knows what time it is in relation to where the sun is in the sky. So when the sun starts going down, your body detects that, and then the need for food, for fuel, starts winding down. Therefore, insulin in your metabolism is not as effective at doing what it needs to do. But what do we do culturally? We eat like birds all day long. Women are notorious for this. We eat like birds all day long. We fast until like 3 p.m. because Jim Bob, the fasting coach, told you to fast your life away. So we eat nothing, right? Women, we snack and graze on these little nibbles of food all day long. And then come dinner time, we feast, right? We feast for our dinner, and then we snack up until we go to bed, right? Because we're hungry, because we didn't get enough nourishment in during the day. So then we eat dinner, and then we find ourselves knees deep in the pantry after dinner up until like 9 p.m., snacking on a bunch of stuff. So most of our food, our fuel, is coming in the later part of the day. We don't want that. That is upside down from our circadian rhythm. Your body is trying to get ready for sleep, to start winding down, because it knows where the sun is in the sky. And here we are giving it all of this food of which it has no use for. And here's another interesting little fact. Okay, so this might run about 2:10 if you guys are cool hanging out with me until then. Here's another interesting thing about sleep, and I think we're going to actually talk about this more in depth next week, but melatonin, our sleep hormone, everybody's probably heard of that. Melatonin actually has a lot of jobs, not just sleep, but that's the one that most people know melatonin for. So melatonin and insulin, they are counter-regulatory hormones, right? Insulin is a daytime hormone. Melatonin is a nighttime hormone. You can think of them, they have like an antagonistic relationship with each other. They're like bad friends. They don't like to work together. So what happens in the evening, when our melatonin should start coming out and start surging around 8 p.m., according to our clock, and then we eat a big meal. So then insulin has to come. So melatonin notices that insulin is present in your body, and it's like, whoa, I don't know what this animal's doing. Like, we should be getting ready for bed here, but I'm going back to the bunker because insulin's out, right? They don't play well together. So that now we're disturbing our sleep. Okay, we don't want to do that. So what should our middle meals look like? The middle meals, we talked about breakfast. You guys are nailing breakfast, right? Your protein dominant breakfast. But what about the subsequent meals? I still want you to prioritize protein. So whether you're eating 2 or 3 meals a day, I still want you to prioritize protein. But think of these meals as more of like your mixed plates, right? Your balanced plates. I don't like that word, but like you add your fruits, your vegetables, your starches, right? Your potatoes, your carrots, your broccoli, your blah, like that's where you just get more of a mixed meal. Okay. Does that make sense? That's what those meals can look like. So what we're doing essentially is we're flipping this entire narrative, right? I want you guys to bring in food when your cells and insulin are at the top of their game in the first part of the day. Your breakfast, like a king meal, tips this off and sets the stage for this entire front load your calorie thing. Okay. If you don't nail your breakfast, this is probably not going to work out how you want it to do. So we're aiming for an upside down cone. Think of a cone, upside down cone. Bigger at the top, smaller at the bottom. This is what we want our meals to look like throughout the day. And that's how our hunger should be showing up. Okay. Our first hunger of the day, you guys have probably noticed, is not the same as your last hunger of the day. Like my first hunger of the day is pretty prominent. I'm like, yo, it's time to eat. Like, and I'm ready. Like I'm ready to feast. But if you break fast appropriately, by the time you get to the end of the day, you still might be hungry, but it's going to be a little bit of hunger, right? So when you really nail this concept, you will find that you just naturally get a little bit less hungry as the day goes on. So your meals, therefore your caloric intake of those meals, just slightly tapers off. Okay, so your last meal of the day is just simply responding to a smaller hunger. Okay, I don't want you guys to, like, this should feel somewhat effortless. It shouldn't feel like you're trying, right? You're not like getting out a smaller plate to make a smaller meal, or like this should just kind of show up. And if you're only eating 2 meals a day, your cone might look a little bit more like a cylinder. I only eat 2 meals a day, so it's not as upside down cone shaped as it is more like a cylinder shape. So don't think like you're doing that wrong. The last thing I will say on this, so a lot of women that I talk to, they'll get on these calls and they'll be like, well, I'm just not hungry in the morning. I'm just not hungry. I can't eat like that in the morning. I can't eat like that. But it's because your cone's wrong, because those are the women who don't eat all day and then eat a bunch of food, big dinner, snacking up until they go to bedtime. So it would make sense that they wouldn't be hungry, right? It would make sense that they weren't hungry in the day because they brought in all of this fuel during the evening and the nighttime. So you're just simply not hungry. But as soon as you flip that cone upside down, then they start feeling like this morning-ish hunger start to kind of tune in. Okay, let me look in these. Okay, outside of the chat. Okay, let me click out of my notes here. Did everybody follow that? Are we feeling okay with that for the most part? Does anybody have questions that's not in the chat? No? Which is fine. If you think of anything, just of course unmute yourself and start.
I have a question. Can you give
Yeah.
me the 1-minute version? Is just eating okay. Is just eating less frequently and less sugar and carbs, is that the 2-step version? I mean, I'm going to listen to some stuff on insulin resistance. I did this once and it's been such a long time I can't remember anything. So is it just basically less influx of insulin and then your cells want to open more frequently?
Yes.
Is that the idea?
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, you already did the definition of that. That's basically it. So the more frequently we eat, right? Because most times when we eat, especially the modern human, because of what we're eating, insulin has to come out, right? Insulin has to clear that sugar from our blood. So the point is to be not eating as frequently by virtue of being satiated, right? This is not like eat less / calories and like starve and have to willpower and white knuckle your way through this, right? I'm hoping nobody's experiencing that. And if you are, let me know. But this is by virtue of we are eating nourishing, substantial, full meals of food. Now we're being satiated for hours, right? Anywhere from 4, 5, 6, 7 hours, right? There's no right or wrong answer to that. So we're giving our body a break from having insulin present, okay? And then we eat again when we're hungry. So that's part of it, is right. We're decreasing the frequency by not doing this meal, snack paradigm thing that we do. And we're eating a lower insulinogenic diet, right? Carbohydrates are very insulin provoking, right? Carbohydrates provoke insulin more than protein and fat. I don't remember if I actually said that in my spiel, but out of the 3 macronutrients, carbohydrates provoke a bigger, provoke more of an insulin blood sugar response than protein and fat. Protein and fat relatively don't nuance with that, but I'm not going to go into that. Protein and fat don't typically have too much of a blood sugar response to it. It's very minimal. Okay. So we're reducing that insulin load from our food, and we're reducing the eating episodes that we have throughout the day. And this helps reorient our blood sugar and insulin relationship. So good question, Audrey. Some diet plans, they tell you to eat slow because you will reach steady before eating too much. I'm hungry, I might eat a little faster. One of that. I feel like those are, that's a good question. So from a nervous system perspective, it's nice when we can sit down and eat our meal, right? And maybe be a little bit more slower, intentional about it and things like that, because eating should be somewhat of a parasympathetic activity, right? Now, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I'm literally driving, shoving food in my face because I have to, I have small windows of time to get my meals in, and I am anything but a slow, intentional eater when that happens. So I don't think there's much truth to that, Gail. I don't think eating fast is going to make it or break it for people. We also have to remember that, from an evolutionary perspective, we were probably fast eaters. Because if we did not eat our meal fast, what do you think happened? Somebody else swooped in and took your shit. So you had to eat as fast as you can. So does that make sense, Gail?
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be affecting when I eat faster, which I sometimes do. It doesn't seem to affect when my next hunger comes on, because my next hunger comes on depends on what I did eat. So if I ate it fast or I ate it slow, it's going to last me just as long. So I just didn't know if that was like a wives' tale or what that was.
I feel like it's just kind of a weird, maybe, kind of a wives' tale in the fit. You guys have heard, if you're, what is it? After you eat a meal, wait 20 minutes to see if your brain can, I don't know if I believe any of that stuff. I think it's just made up stuff. Now, again, I love when I can sit down and really maybe just focus on my meal and eat slowly and eat outside. But also that's not my existence all the time. Did you guys see the meal that I slammed down literally 20 minutes before this? It was 4 pieces of bacon, 2 burger patties. It was anything but slow. I mean, I ate that in 8 minutes and I'm alive. So that's good. So good question. Angela, you said that a great obesity code is an excellent read. Yeah. Obesity Code by, Jason Fung. Was that right, Angela? You might just be listening right now, but I think that's who wrote the obesity code.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's who it is. It
Yep.
explains the insulin thing very well.
Okay. Yep. And then Dr. Ben Bickman, the podcast that I was referring to, he is one of the trusted experts that I actually trust in this nutrition science space. But he has a book called Why We Get Fat. Again, you guys, I do have it on my list to make a resource list for you guys. Sadie, I have not forgot. So I'm saying these things, and I do post podcasts and stuff in our group, but I'm going to try to make a more cohesive list of this stuff. And then when I started this program, my 30-day average blood sugar was 30, and now my 2-week. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's.
Oh, you muted, Gail.
It's working very well for me. So both from the perspective of the cone, the right side, because the only 2 tweaks I really made to having just a low carb diet was getting a good night's sleep, not staying up too late. Even just a couple hours on the front end makes a big difference. So going to bed at 10 instead of midnight, or midnight instead of 2, has been a huge difference. And then the breakfast like a king and the queen and the pauper thing, those 2 differences kind of really squared me away. I mean, I was making progress, but this really has turned it around for me. And I feel very satisfied all the time.
Perfect. That's the name of the game. So is your 116, is that your fasted blood sugar?
I would say it's a combination. I take my blood sugar. First of all, I'm not diabetic. I had to ask my physician to allow me to get to get the strips on prescription because they're not supposed to give them to you if you're not diabetic. And I said, listen, I don't want to be diabetic, so I'd like to be able to take my blood sugar 2-3 times a day and see what the effects of my lifestyle are on that. And
Okay.
so she was been kind enough to give me a prescription. So I don't get as many strips as I would if I was diabetic, but I have some. Those things are expensive.
Well,
They're about
doctors don't do
$100.
prevention.
I know.
Yeah,
That's
no,
what
they
that's
don't
the
do
They
thing.
don't do that. That's
I know.
Yeah.
outside their purview.
Yeah,
It's-
I've been able
it's
to convince her
unfortunate.
to let me do prevention, which has been great. So I take it when I wake up, and it's generally my lowest at, well, no, I shouldn't say that. No, it's usually lower before I go to bed. Then I do get that insulin dump or the blood sugar dump you were talking about in the morning.
Yeah.
Because it's higher. Okay. And
Yeah.
then I generally will try to take it before a meal. So it's sort of a semi-fasting blood sugar.
Okay.
Once in a while, I'm a very slow sugar user. I figured that out decades ago. And so if I eat a meal and I take my blood sugar within 2 or 3 hours, you can definitely tell I ate. I might get a 130, 140.
Yeah.
But if I wait like 5 or 6 hours, then it tapers down into, something more normal. But my doctor told me as long as I stay between 120 and 120 and 140, that I don't have a problem. But I've been I'm making my way well beyond the 120. I mean, it's really, really going well.
Amazing. And something to note about this, Gail, you can talk to your doctor about again. I'm not a doctor, so take this as an educational purpose only. You can ask them to do your fasting insulin. Get your fasting insulin when you do your labs.
Okay.
Because they'll probably do your fasting glucose.
Yep.
But we can see dysregulation in insulin far faster than we can see far faster than we can see dysregulation in blood sugar. Now,
Okay.
I have a whole conspiratorial reason why we don't test for fasting insulin, because we would see red flags way quicker. And that's not super conducive to our healthcare system. But next time, ask to do a fasting insulin.
Are there certain ranges you look for in that? What would be an indicator like?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I do have some numbers that I pulled from a book that I think is a good book, that I can give you some, what some optimal ranges are, and for blood glucose as well. So
Okay.
I'll send those to you.
Perfect.
Yeah, and like you said, the morning, like most people have, right, cortisol spikes in the morning. It's just one of those circadian hormonal things, because that's what helps us feel awake, right? It gives us that little zinger. But with cortisol, right, because it's our I don't know, I'll call it like our survival hormone. It dumps sugar into our blood because it kind of thinks that there's a threat, even though there's not a threat. And that's why we get
I'm surprised because I didn't eat anything. I mean, I went to bed and it was 95 when I went to bed. And why is it 120 this morning? I don't get it. So, but now you're explaining why that happens.
Yep. But then the trouble is that happens, and then it's a double whammy, because most people, the American breakfast is bagels and cereal. So now we already have elevated blood sugar, and then we just crush it with.
Yeah, the whole thing makes total sense. Total sense.
So, okay, guys, that's all I had. 210. I mean, I kind of hit that right on the nut. So I'm glad with that.
Yep.
That was Metabolism School. I hope you guys found that super helpful. I'm going to post that podcast in the group soon. And then, Gail, I will send you some lab reference numbers for when you get it done.
And of course, the other big thing in trying to avoid diabetes is weight gain. So when you gain 50 pounds, if you don't take that when I'm still getting that first 20% off. So I'm looking for 40 pounds. I've lost 14. So but I've got a ways to go to get to the first 40 pounds to reduce my weight by 20%. And that will also affect my blood sugar.
It will. And the more we can get your insulin and blood sugar relationship managed, the easier it will be to lose weight and keep it off, and the better your metabolic markers will improve.
I
So
appreciate
like,
this class. It's been absolutely great.
wonderful.
Thank you.
All right, gals, I will let you guys go. I will see you guys next week. And of course, if you need anything, drop it in the group.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brady.
Bye, guys.
Bye.